Hello world, welcome back to the Razor RC, and we got a fun one for you today. Mini scale has been super popular here in 2024, and I've assembled the three most popular, I think the best representatives of the 1/12 scale electric four-wheel drive monster truck class. On the left, we've got the HPI Savage XS. Retails for about $275 at the time of this video. It's been out for quite a while. I'd say close to like maybe 8 or 9 years at this point. In the middle, we've got the Rlaarlo Omni-Terminator. Comes in two versions. This is the Carbon Edition, which is the higher end version. Retails for about $260 at the time of this video, although it is frequently quite a bit cheaper, like more in the low 200s. So you can definitely find some deals on this. Over here on the right, we've got the brand new Traxxas Mini Maxx. So it is being released, I think, like today or tomorrow. So you can pick this up. Sells for $270 at the time of this video. So size-wise, price-wise, capabilities-wise, they're all very similar. As you can see, the Omni-Terminator is a little bit bigger. It's a little bit wider. Wheelbase is, slightly longer than the other two. The Savage XS and the Mini Maxx are slightly smaller, but these are much bigger than your 14 scale or 16 scale cars, and they are much smaller than your 10 scale cars. So some of you may be wondering, well, what about the Armor Granite? And I've got one here, and as you can see, it's quite a bit smaller. It's got tiny wheels, tiny body. Wheelbase wise, you can see, it's probably about, 2 inches smaller. This to me is really more like 1/14 scale or maybe 1/16 scale. It has a much smaller motor. It is brushed. It is not anywhere near the price, the size, or the capability or speed of these other three. So I'm not comparing this because I don't consider it to be the same type of vehicle. That is like $130, $140, whereas these are all in the $250 to $275 range. So the way this works is we go through 6 different categories, just like all the other reviews. We will have reviews on all these RC cars and links in the description below where you can check them out. But we go through those 6 categories and we rank them from first to third. If you're first in the category, you get 3 points. If you're second in the category, you get 2 points. And if you're last, you get 1 point. At the end, we add up all the scores across all the categories and figure out which one is the best. What makes these cars different than almost like any other 12 scale car on the planet is that they take 10 scale electronics. So if you pop one of these things open, they do have 10 scale servos. They do have 36 millimeter can motors. They do take 2S LiPo power, brushless motors and ESCs. They take standard size servos. So I think the Rlaarlo is actually slightly different, but for the most part, you can fit any sort of 10 scale electronics in this, make more power, upgrade them as you see fit. So yeah, let's get into the review. First category is the electronics. In first place, I am going to go with the Savage XS. So it's got a 3S ESC. It is like a rebranded Hobby Wing. Has a full-size servo, which is actually pretty fast, decent torque on that. It also has a compartment for a full-size LiPo, so you can fit any size 2S LiPo in here. Standard compartment. You could even throw a 3S in here because it is 3S capable. The radio is also really good. I think it's the TF41. Awesome electronics. It is full-blown 10 scale electronics, so it would be perfectly fine on any 10 scale, but here you got in a 12 scale, and it definitely makes it like overpowered, very capable. The Rlaarlo Omni-Terminator, I'm going to give second place. Again, pretty fast. This goes about 37, 38 miles per hour on 3S, 25 miles per hour on 2S. The Savage is closer to like 50 on 3S and about, I think, 35 on 2S. Very fast, very capable. Radio is decent. It's actually more interesting and more programmable than most of the offerings out there, so they're pretty good electronics. It does come with a battery. In last place, I am going to give it to the Maxx. It's got basically the BL2S system that has been running on all their 10 scale starts, but it is the power of more like a brush system. This goes about 30 miles per hour, so it's not that slow on 2S. It does have the Traxxas BL2S ESC. They are kind of weird connectors and stuff, so if you want to upgrade the ESC or upgrade the motor, you will have to solder on new connectors or change out the other component. Servo is the 2056 servo, not particularly good. Fairly slow, I think, at 0.23 seconds. Very weak torque at 80 ounce-inches, and is plastic geared, so pretty low quality. The one thing I will say nice about the electronics is that it does come with a very nice battery. So it comes with this guy here, 3500 milliamp hour 2S pack, so pretty good long time. I mean, the Rlaarlo comes with a 2200 milliamp, and the Savage does not come with a battery whatsoever. So this is pretty decent. Probably the best thing about the electronics, but everything else, it is the slowest, you know, by about 10 miles per hour, depending on what you're comparing it to. It is only 2S capable. You really would not want to run this thing on 3S, and the servo is quite poor. The radio is quite poor overall. Design-wise, the Omni-Terminator, super nice. As you can see, aluminum chassis, very beefy arms, adjustable turnbuckles throughout, 7075 shock tires, aluminum shocks, you know, ESC motor are adjustable, so you can adjust the mesh through just a couple screws there. Battery over here on the side with the ESC behind it. I believe you can adjust this and actually modify it to get a full-size LiPo in there, but out of the box, this is the way it comes, and you would have to relocate the ESC. If you want to do something different, it does have a center differential as well, so super nice. Tires actually pretty decent, good traction. The whole truck is super robust. Looks like a mini 8 scale, you know, if you've seen an Arma or a Sledge or something like that. It's got that look, kind of that layout, that aluminum chassis, aluminum shock tower, aluminum shocks type layout, double wishbone suspension. It's got even metal drive shafts, CVAs, and dog bones, even little carbon fiber inserts. So what it's equipped with, the way it's designed, a lot of adjustments as well, even here on the shock mounting location, you see a lot of differences. You can reverse the arms. It is set up super well, even sway bars. This is almost like a race truck in a 12 scale mini truck configuration. So design wise, I do think this is the best. It looks the most like a full size 10 scale or even 8 scale monster truck out there. Second place, I'm going to give it to the Savage XS. So those of you who like HPI, like the Savage full scale, you know, Savage X, this is pretty much a mini version of that. You see the twin vertical plate, you got the receiver box up here, servo in the front. It is laid out very similar to a Savage. So if you like Savages, if you're familiar with how you work on them, the double wishbone suspension, they are all fixed plastic links, but it does have metal drive shafts front and rear. It does have a slipper in the middle as well as metal center shaft. So this, again, is kind of like an 8-scale Savage X, just shrunk a little bit, but a lot of the components, a lot of design are very similar to the full-size version. You even work on this thing just like a Savage. So this works out pretty good. I'm a fan of this. It does take the full-size battery, you know, full-size 36 by 52 can motor. So all that is really nice in how it's done, and does have a center slipper as well. Last place, I am going to give it to the Maxx. There are some things I like about the Maxx. You know, the battery comes in and out really easily with these body clip system. The battery does also pop in and out fairly easily, although it is a fixed size, so pretty hard to kind of adjust or put in larger batteries. There's no battery strap like you have on the Rlaarlo, or a full-size pack like you have on the Savage XS. No center slipper, no center differential like the other two. It really affects the way it drives, but it does have pretty beefy parts, although everything on this thing is plastic. The drive shafts are plastic, the center shaft is plastic, the whole chassis obviously is plastic, the shocks are plastic. So the way it's equipped, the way it's designed, you know, it's not really meant for too much more adjustment. You know, you can't really fit a larger size cam motor. The ESC mounts is somewhat limited. Not really a lot of adjustments, really nothing here on the shock tires. I think there's a couple mount locations on the arms. So that's kind of all you can do. Although there are upgrades for this. You can get the aluminum shocks, you can get a center diff, you can get that center slipper, but you will have to pay more for that. So in third place, I'm going to go with the Mini Maxx. Now, how do these things drive? And when it comes to performance, there are really two parts. I know a lot of people just focus on the speed. The Savage XS definitely is the speed master at about 50 miles per hour out of the box on 3S. The Omni-Terminator is second at about 37, 38 miles per hour on 3S. It is 3S capable right out of the box, although it does only come with a 2S pack. And Mini Maxx speed-wise, obviously comes in third place at about 30 miles per hour. You know, if you put in a larger 3S VXL system, I'm sure you could get it faster, but I don't think the drivetrain holds up, at least out of the box, the way it is. So speed-wise, that kind of gives you a look at how they actually go. But the other part of performance to me is actually the way it drives. And the Rlaarlo Omni-Terminator, it's a little bit bigger, of course, but it's also just something that is set up perfectly. It drives awesome. The suspension soaks up the bumps. You can do huge jumps, double backflips, that kind of thing. It's very fast. It soaks up the landings really well. The center diff helps it actually drive and corner through the curves a lot better, and it still has good power. Not as fast as the Savage XS, but to be honest with you, this is almost uncontrollable on 3S. I think this thing on 2S is about the same speed as these guys on 3S, but you really are never going to hit those 50 mile per hour speeds, in my opinion. You could, but definitely it is more difficult to drive. The traction is also quite a bit better here than it is on the Savage XS. These tires are quite poor. I do highly recommend you modify this and get different tires, different wheels. You will need to modify the hexes as well. Put in a couple shims on the servo saver that is kind of weak. Once you make those changes, actually the Savage XS drives really, really good. I'd say at least as well as the Omni-Terminator, but you will have to modify it. The Omni-Terminator runs that well out of the box. On the Maxx, you know, I think it's really hurt by not having any sort of driveline protection, either with a slipper to allow you to, you know, adjust to allow the tires to dig in a little bit more, or a center differential allow it to kind of curve and transfer power between the wheels a little bit better depending on traction. So on dirt, I think this is probably the worst performing in terms of handling. It just doesn't have as much traction. It just doesn't jump and land quite as well. It doesn't have the power, of course, but even regardless of that, I don't think it steers well. The servo is super slow. The radio is not particularly good. So in performance, I'm going to give the Mini Maxx third place. Really, the best thing about having a smaller scale vehicle, 12 scale like these guys, is that they tend to be super durable. The Mini Maxx, I have not broken anything, although I am running it only on 2S. I think it holds up really well. You can crash this thing, the body holds up, a lot of durability. Traxxas plastics tend to be probably the best in the business, in my opinion. A nice blend of flexibility and stiffness to allow you to absorb jumps. No issues with these shocks. These are the Ultra Shocks that come on their older 10th scale vehicles, but they hold up fine on this smaller scale vehicle, so no issues with durability. Rlaarlo Omni-Terminator, I do think, you know, it does have a penchant for bending more things. It has way more weight, way more aluminum than the other parts, so I have seen people bend the chassis. These outdrives are not particularly strong, so they do tend to wear over time. Mine are still okay, but you know, as you run a bunch of packs through it, they will start notching out, and they do actually sell upgraded and hardened outdrives for that, and people do tend to bend these shock standoffs here. So durability wise, although my Omni-Terminator has held up, I do see that this probably tends to bend things a little bit more than the other two. The other two are quite a bit lighter, and they're pretty much all plastic. And you know, a lot of people think, well, aluminum's stronger than plastic, right? Well, not necessarily. The plastic actually tends to be a little bit more forgiving, tends to bend rather than break, and then the lightweight also contributes to doing less damage when you do actually crash into something. So with the Savage XS, I actually have not broken anything either. I did have a pin back out one of the drive shafts and the center drive line that, you know, I was able to fix. It was really the outdrive that came out, but other than that, nothing has broken. I do find this thing to be quite sturdy, quite durable. This is probably one of the most durable HPIs in my opinion. A lot of it is just because it's smaller, lighter weight. You know, when it crashes, there's not as much mass behind it to break it. The Rlaarlo is definitely the heaviest of the two. And the Maxx, I think it's also pretty good, although it does tend to break once you put in more power. I think you've seen, guys have seen videos on this. Once you throw in 3S power, the drivetrain really doesn't hold up. So in the durability category, I'm gonna go with the Savage XS in first place. I know some people say it's not that durable. I personally think it is quite durable. I have not broken anything, so super, super happy with this. In second place, I'm gonna go with the Mini Maxx. I think it's also pretty durable, at least on stock power. Now, obviously it's going slower than the other two, not jumping as high, not crashing into things as hard, but you know, as it comes out of the box, I think this is a very durable truck. And finally, in third place, the Omni-Terminator. I know a lot of people think this is durable. I think they're all very durable, but when we're splitting hairs, when we're trying to find out, okay, running these stock out of the box, which one are you more likely to bend or break something? I do think the Omni-Terminator is more likely to eventually wear out the outdrives and possibly bend some of these metal parts. A lot of people overlook how easy it is to work on an RC car or get parts, and for sure Traxxas in this area is a leader. A lot of Traxxas parts throughout the country, at least here in the US. Pretty much every hobby shop sells more Traxxas stuff than anything else, and will tend to stock more Traxxas parts to fix things than anything else. So I do think the Traxxas is a leader. I do think it's also a little bit harder to work on than these other two, but the fact that you can get parts for this is a massive brand here in the US, the biggest brand by far over these other two for sure. That's what gives it the highest rating in the support and maintenance category. Second place, I'm gonna give it to the Savage XS. HPI has been around for a long time. Most hobby shops will carry at least some HPI parts, if not already has some Savage XS parts on the wall. This thing has been around for 8 or 9 years or so. There are already upgrades out there you can buy on Amazon or AliExpress or whatever for this platform. Because it's been around so long, it was reasonably popular for HPI at the time, and they're still selling it. Rlaarlo, you're definitely gonna have more difficulties buying parts. In the US, you're probably going to order stuff from Amazon or directly from the Rlaarlo website, but hobby shops are not going to carry this brand. All the major online shops are not going to carry this brand or carry any parts, so it is going to be more difficult to get the parts, and they will frequently, oftentimes, take a little bit longer to get to you. They may be shipped from China, so you may be waiting around a little bit longer when this thing is broken. Between the two of these, they're not particularly easy to work on either. If you're familiar with the Savage, you probably have a decent understanding of how to take this thing apart. It is very similar. The Rlaarlo is similar to most like A-scale trucks, if you're familiar with that, although you will have to basically rip apart the diffs to get at the diffs. Disassemble a lot of things, so it's not super easy, although it's not the most difficult thing. I find the Mini Maxx actually a little bit more weird, just like its bigger brothers, the Maxx and the X Maxx, a little bit strange on how you take things apart and get to the diffs and things like that. So although this is a little more difficult to work on, the parts ability, part support for it is going to be way bigger than the other two. So, and the parts in the support and maintenance category, I'm definitely giving it to the Mini Maxx first, HPI second, and the Rlaarlo third. Price-wise, these are all pretty close in terms of how they cost. The Savage just come in a few versions. The El Camino version, at least at the time of this video, is $275 on Amazon. I'll have a link in the description below. The orange body one, like I have, is a little bit more, I think at $315 or $325. So I don't think there's any functional difference. It's just a different body. But if you want a Savage XS, you would get the El Camino at $275. The Rlaarlo officially is $260, although it is frequently cheaper, even for the carbon version, which is definitely the one I would get. It's got the faster motor, just a little bit upgraded parts, the carbon fiber chassis stiffeners and things like that. But at $260, even that price, I think it's really, really good. It's got way nicer parts than the other two. The electronics are all good, the radio's good, the motor ESC are all good. The servo maybe not necessarily the best, and the battery is only a 2200 milliamp hour. But this is quality parts throughout. It's got the aluminum shocks, the all-metal drivetrain, the CVAs, the 7075 shock tires, the nice 6061 chassis. So this is a premium product. It's really the cheapest of this three, at this being at $275 and this at $270. So considering it's $10 less than the other two, and a lot nicer parts, is definitely the value leader. The Traxxas Maxx, what is there to say? I mean, it's $270, which is not bad. I actually paid $250 for mine. That was the original release price, but they raised it up to $270 for some reason. So I think the value goes down a little bit more. But it is all plastic. It's got the worst electronics, really the most poorly equipped. There's nothing in here that I would say is outstanding about the truck in terms of what you're paying for. And it is, pretty much the same price as the Savage XS, although you see where that money goes. There's much better ESC, much better motors, 3S cable, much better servo, much better radio. So, in addition to just the metal drivetrain, right? So, yeah, definitely the Mini Maxx falls in third place. So when you add up all the scores, you come up with, a fairly close rating. The Mini Maxx comes in at third at 9 points. So really, it doesn't lead any categories except for the support and maintenance, value, performance, electronics. It's last. So a lot of the categories, it ends up finishing last. And price-wise, it's really not any cheaper than the other two. So what is there to say in terms of the rating? Well, it is a 9-point rating, and I think that's pretty accurate with how it fares compared to the other two. In second place, we actually have the Rlaarlo Omni-Terminator at 13 points. So it actually scored really well in the design, the performance, the value as well, but it did score quite low in some of the other categories, like the support and maintenance is the lowest. The durability, I do think it is the lowest. So it's kind of got some really high points and some kind of low points, and that's kind of why it barely gets beaten by the Savage XS. I think the Savage XS is a monster. For mini scales, this has always been my favorite smaller scale RC car. Super capable. you know, you do need some small modifications like better tires, maybe adjust the servo shimming, and I think you get something pretty phenomenal. The diffs do have grease in them if you change them out to diff fluid. I do have a video on how to tune this, just some really minor improvements, and this thing is awesome. It drives as well as the Omni-Terminator, but it's better in some other ways, right? It's got the full-size lipo. I think it's more durable. The performance you get pretty equal, and then the part support is better. So yeah, it barely edges out the Omni-Terminator at 14 points. The Omni-Terminator is at 13 points, and the Mini-Maxx is at 9. I think that's pretty accurate. I think these two you can pretty easily flip-flop back and forth. Some people may think the Omni-Terminator is more durable than the Savage, and that would easily flip the scores to make this come in first, but I think either you really can't go wrong. The Mini-Maxx does have some nice things going for it. I think they designed this as a platform that you can upgrade, so they're going to release whatever, 100 plus optional parts, aluminum shocks, center differential or center slipper, aluminum drive shaft, I think even metal CVAs, stuff like that. So you could definitely spend a bunch more on this to get it really nice and, you know, similar to these two other cars, but you're going to be spending, you know, a fair amount of money. And if you're looking to do that kind of thing, then maybe the Mini-Maxx is there for you. Part support is definitely highest. I think out of the box it's super durable. I do think, you know, if you just got this, drove around and had fun with it as is, it's totally fine. It's not particularly impressive and it's not particularly cheap, but you know, maybe that doesn't concern you and you're just sort of a Traxxas guy, and I could understand that. But you know, objectively, when you rank them in these categories against the other two, it does fall a little bit short, and that's kind of how I see it. So anyways, those are my thoughts on these three trucks. Let me know what you think. If you think the scoring was fair, a lot of people think, well, I don't really trust your ratings or whatever. Well, tell me which of the ratings you would have switched in a different order, and then explain why. And you know, I'm happy to listen to any of your thoughts. So I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to hit the like, share, subscribe buttons. Look for more videos soon. Thanks for watching.